Good evening, everyone, and welcome to American Weed Realm Radio. I'm Josh Stanley. I'm your host tonight. Tonight we have a very special show. We've added an extra 30 minutes here tonight so that I could have a very special guest here, Bob Crouse. Many of you know about Bob Crouse if you're local here, and many of you, you know what, if you've joined some of the chat groups and some of the sites, you know who Bob Crouse is. You know what Bob Crouse has been throughout the last couple of years. And so we're going to hear Bob's story here in just a minute. Tonight, unfortunately, I have to let everyone know Chris Stubbs, our resident chemist and our resident nerd, has got an unexpected emergency, and he will not be able to join us for Science Corner tonight. But not to worry, we're going to do an extra long set with Dr. Shackelford, who will be here at the top of the hour for the Ask Dr. Shack. And we've got some very, very important questions for Dr. Shackelford, and he's going to do his best to answer those. And then we have a very special guest calling in tonight. A very unexpected guest, I might add, a senator from the state of Oklahoma who has courageously, Senator Connie Johnson has courageously introduced legislation in Oklahoma and has been doing so since 2006. And that takes a courageous person, I might tell you, in the state of Oklahoma to introduce legislation for medical marijuana regulation. She's going to be calling in tonight at the top of the hour. We're going to be taking her questions and listening to her answers. We also have Jerri Stephens calling in, an Oklahoma activist. She'll be calling in at the end of the hour, and she has a very, very important story to show us. And what this really does, folks, is this shows us that, listen, it's not just Colorado. It's not just California. It's not just these 16, 17 states who have inducted medical marijuana in their realms. It's all of us. It's all 50 states. And if it's not all 50 states, I know we have listeners out there in Scotland. We've got listeners in Australia, New Zealand, Amsterdam, all over the world. It's not just us here in Colorado, and I think that's very important to note. So tonight's show is going to be very telling. We're going to spend a lot of time here with somebody who I consider to be one of my great friends, a person I love very much, and a person that I have a lot of respect for. And his name is Bob Crouse, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce him right now onto the show. Bob, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Josh. It's always good to be here. I love any opportunity I have to share knowledge that I've learned over this last experience. There's so many good things going on. There's so many tragic things going on, and I'm just glad to be here and do what I can to help spread information and education. There's so much going on out of this court trial that I just got out of. It still really hasn't quite settled on me as to what's really going on. It was a heck of an ordeal. It's been a heck of a victory for me. I'm still concerned about how this is going to be interpreted on the other patients that are out there. That still, there's a lot of fear that patients have. It's sad. They shouldn't have to be afraid to have their medicine.
No, they shouldn't. And, you know, you have different jurisdictions, and as we talk in the state of Colorado, you have some places that people say, hey, you know what, it's okay. Our local district attorney is not prosecuting these patients, isn't even looking at these patients. And we've gone through now not one but two very, very pivotal, important trials within your county, within Colorado Springs and El Paso County, within the last 3 weeks that have rendered both by jury not guilty verdicts. And I might add, okay, you and Elisa Kappelman have said, you know what, we're not going to take a plea bargain. We're not going to plea this down. We're not going to plead guilty to anything. And you know what? My hat is off to you. Colorado's hat is off to you. The world's hat is off to you for saying, not only are we not guilty, not one thing about this case or about this prosecution was done correctly, and have we done anything wrong other than you personally taking on a crusade to heal your leukemia. And I want to thank you for that personally, because that sets a testament. You could have walked away from this and said, okay, you know what, I'm probably going to get probation. And that's going to give the prosecutors, that's going to give the DA, that gives them a minor victory. That gives them a little bit more to push on and say, you know what, we can continue to prosecute these medical marijuana patients at will. And you said, no, I'm not going to do it.
Well, don't give me too much credit. I didn't. I had to do it. It was life or death for me, because to take a plea for anything in El Paso County is to know that you're not going to get your medicine anymore. And the medicine that you and your brothers in the realm and in dispensary have been giving me for over a year now, if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't be here now to talk to you. The only thing I was ever really afraid about was losing my medicine, losing access to my medicine, because they don't let patients have medicine if you're convicted of jaywalking. It's insane.
Well, I'm still going to give you that courage, okay? Because you know what? Take your condition aside. You know as well as I do, okay, now that we have a not guilty and you are free as a bird now, you know as well as I do that we would have figured out a way to get Bob Crouse's medicine regardless of any plea that you took, because your life is much more healthy than any type of law that anybody could ever put down on you.
Oh, I understand that, but reality was I asked the judge if I could take medicine, have my medicine in the courtroom, and he wouldn't authorize me to do it. We tried to get medicine in through the courthouse, and we were refused access to the building with our medicine. We called the Chief Justice to ask why it is that we can't take our medicine into the courthouse, and he said that it's just his decision that we can't do it. We asked him if he'd ever read the Constitution. He said he didn't care, that you can't have alcohol in the courthouse, you can't have guns in the courthouse, and he's saying you can't have marijuana in the courthouse, and that's the issue that was adjudicated at my trial. There's a medical definition of patient and marijuana, and that's what the Constitution is referring to. Unfortunately, Dan May, John Suthers have hung their hat, both of them, and their political career, on a law that was established 2 years after the constitutional amendment was passed. I had a district judge look at that, and what he said to Dan May and John Suthers, that this is just simply unconstitutional. Their interpretation of the law and how they are wrongfully adjudicating it in El Paso County, where now we have political prisoners in jail, people that are in jail as innocent as I am. They're in jail in Colorado Springs and El Paso County. They didn't do anything wrong. They were adjudicated on a misinterpretation of the law from the highest pinnacles of our state, people that just simply, their prejudice has not allowed them to interpret the law the way it's supposed to be interpreted, and now a district judge says that their interpretation is unconstitutional. So are they going to still prosecute patients in the future, or will they make adjustments like they told my judge in court? The prosecution said after Dan May and John Suthers' name were entered in my court.
And folks, hold on just a second. I want to let everybody know who Dan May and John Suthers are, okay? So tell them.
Dan May is the district attorney in El Paso County. John Suthers is the attorney general of the state of Colorado. Together and cumulative with the pressure of the Republican Party and the prejudice of those two offices came down on the backs of a very, very strong, virtuous, constitutional American patriot judge. His name is Tim Schutz. He was the judge that adjudicated my trial. This is a man of incredible virtue and integrity, and he stood up against everybody and said, okay, I'm not going to bend just because all of the pressure tells me to bend. I'm going to look and see what the law really is. He didn't want to have to look at that particular issue in this trial. They made him. He was upset. He came back. They've told us exactly the statute that they've hung their hat on, and they've lost. So why are they still now prosecuting patients?
They've lost repeatedly, folks. Repeatedly, they have lost in this. And you know what? When we talk about these folks like John Suthers, our Colorado Attorney General, okay, we're not really talking about a law here. And I think that's very, very important for all of you to understand. We're talking about a constitutional amendment, a constitutional right, okay? This didn't even get written in statute. This is what we call an affirmative defense that Bob was able to base his case on. And this is not a law that somebody just came up with and said, okay, this can be challenged. We're talking about a Colorado constitutional amendment that our own Attorney General, and I've had it with him, and I think just about everybody else has too, because when he took oath in office, he took an oath to defend the Constitution of Colorado. not the Constitution of the federal government or to act for its intervening. He took an oath to defend the Constitution of Colorado. And so far, within the realm of medical marijuana, he has done just the opposite. And he has gone in and he has prosecuted people like Bob Crouse, sitting here in front of you today, a leukemia patient who the only thing that he has found relief in what works for him, and we'll talk about his results later, is through the use of medical marijuana. Now, Bob doesn't sit all day and puff on a peace pipe. Bob doesn't sit all day and pull bong tubes. He doesn't sit all day and roll joints. Bob takes the realm oil, the realm of carrying oil. In fact, Bob, I'm very proud to say, is the #1, our very first realm of carrying patient. How long ago did you start taking that oil, Bob?
You know, I remember I remember back now, the first oil I got from you guys was in the summer of 2010. And then off and on from then, and then when we got into, once the authorities came in and stole everything from me and I didn't have any medicine, I was hurting real bad, and you guys started last June then. So since last June until now, I've had an average of 2 grams a day that you guys have supplied for me. And if I hadn't have been able to have that from you guys, they took all my plants. I couldn't produce it myself. I wouldn't have the medicine.
The state of Colorado, El Paso County, took away Bob's medicine and then did even worse than that. Painted him as a criminal, painted him as a felon, brought him up on trial. Bob had the strength, and Bob, I'm bowing to you now because I got to sit in on a portion of that trial, not as much as I wanted to, but brother, I've never seen anybody sit on a stand and take the most ridiculous, condescending questions from a prosecution that I had to watch you go through. And as they continued to ask you, did your Colorado red card, which is your license in Colorado, did your red card, was that sent back to you because of a doctor's error, a doctor's clerical error on his address or whatever the case was? And you had to sit there and say yes, but you know what? My leukemia didn't go away. I watched you do that, and I think the whole gallery just kind of looked. And as I looked at the gallery, I looked at the jury, and I could see about 8 of the jurors just roll their eyes and say, "What are we doing here?"
Can I tell you one poignant moment in the trial?
Please.
This is so important for everybody who's listening and for all the patients. You know, so many people, we have so many advocates, so many people within the industry, so many supporters, and so many times people wish they could do more, but they can't because they can't come to a protest because they have to work, or they're sick, or they're taking care of somebody else. But everybody does what they can, and that's important for everybody to know that what you can do is exactly what you're supposed to do. And I want to tell you the story about a 93-year-old man, a patient, a supporter, a protester. His name is Carl Wander. And Carl at 93 is pretty frail and fragile, but he still gets around pretty good. He has a white Santa Claus. He could be Santa Claus, kind of a miniature Santa Claus. He's just a beautiful person and a beautiful spirit, and always wishes he could do more than he can, but he's 93. He's out there in 100-degree heat every day in the protests, and then up at the trial every day, and he always is there, and his presence is what he can do. And so he's the main character of this story. He's the main reason that I won a day, the third day of the trial, and ultimately it was because of him that we won the whole trial. And so
expound on that a little bit more.
Here's the setting now. You know the primary character. The setting is in the courtroom now, and Dr. Dallenbach, who is the physician that I met a few years ago to make the recommendation for me to do exactly what I was doing, the number of plants and so forth. And it was a lot, but it was I did what I was supposed to do. I had a doctor recommend it to me, and so the doctor's up on
and
this.
Folks, I'm here to tell you real quick that he was recommended 75 plants. That, from us making the oil for him, that's not even enough for the amount of medication that Bob needs to have for his disease. I'm sorry, go on, Bob.
Yeah, and nobody knows how much really back then. That was just the common thought was 75 plants. The doctor researched it and recommended it. And so the doctor now is up on the witness stand, and the prosecution is just hammering him, just beating him up mercifully. And that's the job of the prosecution, is to try to discredit anybody that the witness has testify. The defense has to testify. And so they're just beating on him and beating on him and beating on him. And I nudged my lawyer and say, we need to throw him a little help here. He's getting beat up. She says, well, I'd like to, but there's really not much we can do. He was in the middle of cross-examination, and so it was all just the prosecution beating him and him just standing there and taking it. And all of a sudden, the back room, the door opens up and somebody hollers, is there a doctor? There's a man down on the floor out here. And Carl had just recently had a difficult time and was helped out of the courtroom and passed out on the floor and wasn't breathing. And my doctor jumped from the witness stand, ran across the courtroom, out the door, and
without the judge's permission.
Without the judge's permission, just doing what a doctor does, and got Carl revived to the point that then when the ambulance came and took him away, and Carl is fine. In fact, Carl was in the courtroom the next day sitting when I got on the stand, and when I saw him looking at me there in the back, and I was on the stand, I was just joyful to see him. I knew that all along that he was okay, because God used Carl, a 93-year-old man, to when the doctor came back in and sat on the witness stand right next to the jury. Do you think there was any more question in that jury's mind about the credibility of my doctor? And it was supernaturally won. And so patients need to know that we have a spirit and an ability to overcome that's supernatural. And the oldest patient that we have in the state was the man that won the day in my trial, because my doctor's credibility was the second leg of the affirmative defense. And then ultimately the third leg, which was medical necessity, rested on the credibility and what that same doctor did. So without 93-year-old Carl Wander being there, God would have found somebody else. But it's important that everybody know we're all in this together. And I'm free now, but honestly, I don't feel safe for us yet, because they still don't understand that it's like we've got street sweepers out there. It's not an attorney general, it's not a district attorney, it's not a VNI. We got street sweepers. Now, it's a job. We've hired them to do a job. I've been in business my whole life. I've had a lot of employees, and now I see we've got employees who, and if we liken it to the street sweeping job, that's what their job is. All along they've been sweeping both sides of the street, and we appreciate that. There's a lot of good that needs to be done, and these folks are charged with a heck of a responsibility, and it's something that our community needs, is to have our streets swept, whether it be through the Attorney General's office or the VNI or the district attorneys. They're really just street sweepers. They work for us. My experience in business, I've been in business my whole life. If I have an employee that doesn't understand what their job is, then my job is to explain it to them. So now, yesterday, we explained to our street sweepers that we also expect the center of the street to be swept. And they've looked at it and said, well, we don't think the center of the line of the street, the yellow line down the middle, needs to be swept, because it doesn't get much traffic on it. There's not very many tires. Whatever it is that they think has nothing to do with the rules. Their personal opinions are nice, but we don't need to have street sweepers to have personal opinions about changing the way we sweep our street. And so now what we need to do is re-educate those employees that we have at the Attorney General's office, through the District Attorney's office in El Paso County, as well as the VNI in El Paso County, where they simply have never been trained as to what it is they need to do. Explain to them that our streets need to have the streets swept down the yellow center line, and if they want to have a street that they don't do that, they're welcome to go and build their own city, build their own street, sweep it any way that they want, but we expect the center line to be swept too, along with the good that they're doing in all the others. Just do it with cannabis too now. We're just trying to educate our employees. If they can't do it, what I've always done in the past is I fire my employees. And so Dan May, John Suthers, and the VNI, who are not following directions, as your employer, I'm serving notice that you're doing your job wrong. If you need help in understanding how to do your job, please ask us. We'd like to teach you. If you have any questions, policies that were implemented in Boulder County when they found out what the law was, I'm sure Stan Garnett would be willing to send Dan May what worked in Boulder County to stop prosecuting patients. So we're at the stage now where we're trying to make sure our street sweepers know how to sweep, how we expect it to be swept, give them a chance to sweep it, And, Josh, if they don't start sweeping the streets right pretty soon here in the next couple of months, then what we're going to have to do is look for a way to get a new street sweeper.
Well, Bob, you said it. And you know what? You couldn't have said it best, because what we talk about here at the Realm of Caring is education, not activism. And people get those two things mistaken. Of course, we try to activate misunderstanding, but we don't do it through the traditional banging head against wall routine. We do it through education. And so we want to give Dan May, we want to give John Suthers that opportunity. He's just lost 2 big cases of against medical marijuana patients. So why don't we come together and we say, okay, listen, this is the law. You don't have to like the law, but this is the law. This is in our Constitution. So let's figure out a way to work together on this,
absolutely,
so that we stop prosecuting these patients. And then the other hand of it, you said it very eloquently, is the fact that there are so many other people for what you were charged with prior to some of these laws coming to fruition, but always in our Constitution since the year 2000, that are spending time in prison, these nonviolent offenders. And I think that that's another cause that we can take to try to educate and get these people freed.
And I see it really as for the children, and we'll talk about that again in a minute.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break here on American Weed Realm Radio. We're going to be right back here with Bob Crouse. We still have another 25-30 minutes with him, and I'm so glad we do. Come join us. Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
The Clinic is proud to announce the 3rd annual Clinic Charity Classic Golf Tournament benefiting the Colorado MS Society. The tournament will be held at City Park Golf Course this coming August 11th. There will be some incredible prizes, including an opportunity to win a trip for 2 to Hawaii. The trip includes airfare, 8 days, 7 nights at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua, including 4 rounds of golf and $1,500 spending cash. Thanks to the incredible support of Weed Maps, Hetty Glass, Rocky Mountain Hydro, T. Meyer & Stitch, Dixie Elixir, and MMJprinting.com, we're able to provide awareness to this incredibly difficult condition that so many Coloradans are suffering from. The event will be covered extensively by our favorite industry media outlets, Culture Magazine, The Hemp Connoisseur, Kush Magazine, and of course the amazing people at iCannabis Radio. Please register at thecliniccolorado.com or at any of our 6 convenient locations throughout the Denver metro area.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it on grass. Runongrass.com.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
2 of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our 2 locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding. Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Welcome back, everybody. American Weed Realm Radio. Josh Stanley here, your host, and I'm here with our very, very special guest and our very close friend, Bob Crouse. We're going to pick up right where we left off, and for those of you that are just tuning in, Bob Crouse is Realm of Caring patient number 1. Bob Crouse unfortunately has leukemia, has been battling this for some time, and has been battling with great success from the Realm of Caring oil, and the oil that he used to produce until El Paso County came in and took it from him and prosecuted him. And Bob, to catch you up with everything, we're not going to go through the whole thing again, was just last week, and oh my God, I mean, just stop for a second and realize how huge this is. Bob Crouse, by a jury of his peers, was rendered not guilty on all charges. And Bob, again, for the people just viewing, thanks for coming in. Thanks for talking to us.
Oh, you're sure welcome. I'm glad to be here.
We're going to pick this up again right where we left off, and what Bob was saying as we left, and this is not so much an interview as this is an opportunity for Bob to talk. Bob has a lot of things to say and a lot of things that people need to listen to. Bob follows our spirit here at the Realm of Caring and American Weed Realm Radio, where we don't activate, we educate. If you get angry at these folks, you get mad at the situation, and you go and you fight back and you throw stones, you're going perpendicular to misunderstanding, you're banging your head against a wall. When you educate, you parallel that misunderstanding, and pretty soon those lines cross. That's when the light goes on, and that's what we seek to do. There are times, however, when education fails and we've got to remove, because people like Dan May, people like John Suthers, district attorneys, attorney generals, who do not interpret our Constitution, which is black and white, we can go so far as educating them, and then at some point in time people need to understand these are our employees. We don't work for them. They work for us. They're elected officials. And Bob, I want you to expound on that a little bit more, because your not guilty verdict gives us an opportunity, because I believe Dan May once a week, or is it once a month, runs an instructional class on the Constitution.
Right now he's got a weekly class, as I understand it, that he teaches in the community about the functioning of the district attorney's office. I don't know what other parts of curriculum there are there. I know that we've got people that attend the class, but I'm not up to speed with all of the curriculum. Are we planning, and I know we are, but for the viewers and listeners out there, planning on attending these classes now once a week? So that we have people there doing that right now. Part of the reason we first started to do it was we want, we're looked at as lepers sometimes. It's so sad. People are, the rumors that they hear, the lies that they've heard, they don't know if we're going to eat our children or what. So just having them see that we're normal people. I was at a Republican backslapping event that they have once a week, I think it is, and they have different people come in, and Dan May came in at one time, and so we went down there for that, and over half the people there were our supporters. We had more people there than Dan May did at his own event, and we didn't do anything except sit there. We tried to ask some questions. They were pretty well horrified and scared of us. They really limited what we could say, and were afraid we might say anything, but we were just there, and the people that were Dan May's constituents saw that, our skin didn't flake off on them. They didn't leave with, green things falling off of their head, or that we're really just normal people, that we just need medicine. It just happens that our medicine is cannabis. So we have stickers talk about love your haters. I don't know why they hate us. We didn't choose to be sick. If there was another medicine at work, we'd be after it as vehemently as we're after this. This just happens to be the one that works. So just being around everybody that's been prejudiced against us, and slowly but surely they're seeing that we're just regular folks. In fact, they're seeing that we really are virtuous people, that we're actually patriots. We have so much knowledge to share with them. They only know half of what we know. What they know, they only know because we've told them, and now they're realizing that what they need to know, the only place they can learn from about it is from us. So they're asking, and as they're asking, they're finding not only do we have the answers, but we have the leadership to lead our community, our county, our state, and even our country out of this morass. It all starts with basic principles that our founding fathers believed in about who we are. And so educating people about who we are is as important as it is as educating people about the medicine of cannabis.
And Bob, your story, as unfortunate as it was and what you went through, and I can't begin to imagine what you went through, although we experienced it with you. We could feel it from you. We felt the angst, and I think everybody in the community and everybody beside you, every time we were with you, all we could think were two words: not guilty. The whole time that you were under this prosecution. And you know what? The funny thing about this is, and whatever religious scripts you subscribe to, the lesson in adversity is that there's always light at the end of that. And if we can understand that, and we can say, okay, you know, whatever the euphemism is, when God closes the door somewhere, he opens a window, right? So we come out of this a victor, and if we'd come out of this a loser, let's be honest with each other, we'd still figure out a way to bring about a positive message to this. But because you beat the system, because you won this, because you're not guilty, this gives you a new platform, Bob. This gives you a new opportunity with not only the realm, because we're all the realm of caring, but this gives you an opportunity to educate and enlighten. Talk about that for just a minute.
I'm very, very thankful that I've had the opportunity to experience what I've experienced, because it's taught me what it is that we need to know. And I know it in a way that I'm able to share it with people. So I will be doing that forever now. It's very humbling to have the kind of responsibility, I suppose, that seems to keep coming my way because of what's happened to me. And I just ask for everybody's prayers, because I don't want to do anything to have anybody be hurt by the voice that I do have. And I know that I do have a powerful voice, and I know it's getting more powerful every day. And so I just hope that I can use it in a way that serves the community and helps to educate the community in some of the concerns that, particularly in El Paso County as well as the whole state, that we need to start being aware of, is that there are covered wagons heading to Colorado again with Pikes Peak or bust on it. You and I have seen it, and those of us in the industry, as we meet these people coming from all over the country because they've heard about the incredible potential of healing and relief from symptoms and disease, that where these people are coming from, they don't have access to the medicine, and so many people in our country do not have access to health insurance. They can argue Obamacare all they want. The fact is, people that can't afford insurance can't afford it, whether you say you have to have it or not. So we've got patients coming by the hundreds and by the thousands, and we're going to have we need to build the infrastructure together right now underneath the realm. We need to have everybody start to understand we got to focus on this because they're coming, and we got to stop focusing on the political infighting and arguments about what the Constitution says. It says sweep the streets down the yellow line. Let's stop arguing about it. Let's get people that will do that. And just like our community rallied together so amazingly as they fought against this horrific fire that came against us, and that same effort that was 30,000 people that were evacuated in El Paso County. And there's going to be 30,000 people here next summer in tents on Fountain Creek if we don't also build the same infrastructure again. And our industry needs to lead that infrastructure, and we are, and we're creating it underneath the realm. And there's a lot of people that would bicker and be argumentative or prideful or egos or whatever about anything in this industry, and there's now no more time for infighting or politics within our industry. Those people that want to continue to argue about politics and who's on first and who came first and the chicken and the egg. That's fine. You guys continue to argue about that all you want. The realm and the patients are moving forward to address the crisis that's approaching us, and we encourage you to join on board and help bring resources that you may have and help us identify the needs that are there and help us start to create the infrastructure that needs to be done. We don't have any more time for bickering within our smaller community now that the larger community is asking us to join it, and they're looking to us not only for the knowledge that they need from people like Dr. Bob Malamidi or even Dr. Shackelford and all the patients. They know that we have the information, they know we have the training, the education, and now they're understanding that we really are the patriots. We really are the ones that will take care of people and for the children. You know, the arguments here, there's so much argument, right side, left side, from community to the U.S. Congress, and everybody's arguing, nothing's getting done, both sides saying it's for the children. Well, Josh, for the children, now I'm sad to report to you that the next child born in America, the next U.S. citizen that's born in America, because we have been doing such a good job up here for the children in our insanity of argument. The children now, the next child that's born in America when they take their first breath is $353,000 in debt, and we're doing it for the children. Shame on us. We have children now in El Paso County that see patients out with signs. The patients in wheelchairs and rags on their head because they have no hair from the chemotherapy, and canes and hobbling, and they're carrying signs and protests and marijuana, and the children want to know what's going on. And in El Paso County, we've got political prisoners in jail in our own community. So let's just tell the children that's okay. We just arrest innocent people and put them in jail. No, we can do better. We need to hold all of our employees, whether they're hired, elected, or assigned. They're just employees. And if we want our business to not go down, you know, we got to have employees that follow the good common sense business practices that are given to us by our founding fathers and mentioned in our Constitution, for heaven's sakes.
Exactly. Bob, you know what? Well, you need your own radio show, first of all. But thank you for that. Folks, there are 800,000 people in Colorado that are left uninsured. And when a person like Bob Crouse, for example, who gets diagnosed with leukemia, treats his disease with a plant that, mind you, has not in the 10,000 years of recorded history ever killed anybody, ever overdosed anybody, ever harmed anybody. This is what we put our sights on. Although, no problem, we can prescribe Bob Marinol, we can prescribe Bob morphine, Demerol, all of these benzos and all of these opiates. That's okay. And that's the message that we're sending to our children. And folks, the time's done. But the other thing that Bob mentioned here, and I think this is so important, okay, is we are the realm. We are all the realm of caring here. And within the medical marijuana community, there is so much bickering, there is so much jealousy, there's so much ego, there's so much fighting, and I've never seen more dissension in a community in my life. I got into this business 4 years ago, and I told my wife, I said, you know what, I think this is going to be what a peaceful way to go and figure out the mysteries of this amazing plant that we know can help so many people. And nothing has been further from the truth until my brothers and I got together and said, you know what, screw it. We're going to start the realm of caring. We're going to give this to patients like Bob. We're going to team up with people like Dr. Alan Shackelford, and we're going to take care of them. We're going to show the world exactly what this plant does. And you know what we've gotten, Bob? And you know what we've gotten? We've got nothing but heartache in our own community.
But we have, when we look back behind us, the people that we helped. You know, when I was on my journey and I didn't know what was going to happen, and all I knew is that I'd get to a point and I'd turn around and look, and if I helped one patient, then my journey's worth it. And now we have tens and we have hundreds that we're helping, and thousands are coming, and we need the whole industry's support to pull together. We need the whole community's support in El Paso County. We need the whole state's support. We can do this. It's an exciting challenge. My gosh, we have a cure for cancer, and the cancer patients are coming.
They're coming by droves. We got hundreds of emails a week saying, can you ship this oil out of state? My first answer is no, and I'll say it over and over again. We should be able to, but we can't because I don't look good in orange. And there's no way that I'm going to be able to do something like that. I'm not calling the top bunk for anybody. And so we have these droves of people that need to move here to Colorado. And what's going to happen when they get to Colorado? And many have gotten here and said, what is going on with this community? Because I'm here to tell you, the realm of caring is not just the Stanley brothers. We cannot continue to do this on our own. We can take care of so many people, but with everybody else's input, we can take care of everyone. Even in the blogs this week, and I'm not going to mention much negativity because I really don't get into that on this show, but in the blogs this week, in that wonderful magazine Westward, and Westward, you know what? Got a bone to pick with you. You always let these freaks talk. And what they say is, don't join the realm of caring. Don't give money to the realm of caring. The Stanley brothers have never helped Bob Crouse. They've never given him oil. They've never supported him in this. And not only Bob Crouse, but I'm sitting here and I'm looking at a precious patient right here, right now, Katie, who you're going to meet here in a subsequent episode. She's in the studio today and a precious person. It's not just Bob. It's not just Katie. It's scores more people that we can help. But we can help not 50 or 60 or 70 cancer patients. We can help 20,000 with your help. And so at this moment in time, we're about to cut to a commercial, but I think it's a good time to tell people, go to realmofcaring.com. Please become involved. Bob, you say it, I say it, we all say it. We are the realm, period. We are here not to charge, not to make money for this oil, but to show people that this is not only a viable form of treatment, this can potentially cure cancer. This can potentially stop epilepsy. This stops MS. This can stop Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, incredible things for arthritis, and so on and so forth. The iceberg has not even come out of the tip of the water yet, according to what this plant can potentially do. And we're going to sit here and hold people like Bob Crouse on trial for it? No, sir. Not anymore. Those days are over. We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to be back, and we're going to have a few more words with Bob Crouse, and then we're going to take Senator Connie Johnson from Oklahoma. We'll see you here in just a minute. Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
The clinic is proud to announce the 3rd annual Clinic Charity Classic Golf Tournament benefiting the Colorado MS Society. The tournament will be held at City Park Golf Course this coming August 11th. There will be some incredible prizes, including an opportunity to win a trip for 2 to Hawaii. The trip includes airfare, 8 days, 7 nights at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua, including 4 rounds of golf and $1,500 spending cash. Thanks to the incredible support of Weed Maps, Hetty Glass, Rocky Mountain Hydro, T. Meyer & Stitch, Dixie Elixir, and MMJprinting.com, we're able to provide awareness to this incredibly difficult condition that so many Coloradans are suffering from. The event will be covered extensively by our favorite industry media outlets, Culture Magazine, The Hemp Connoisseur, Kush Magazine, and of course the amazing people at iCannabis Radio. Please register at thecliniccolorado.com or at any of our 6 convenient locations throughout the Denver metro area.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
2 of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our 2 locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it on grass. Runongrass.com. Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706.
Welcome back to American Weed Realm Radio. Josh Stanley here, your host, here with one of my good buddies, Bob Crouse. And we just have a few more minutes for Bob Crouse, and then we're gonna be taking a very important call from Senator Connie Johnson from Oklahoma, who has a lot of input for us. Very courageous senator. But Bob, what I'd like to do now, and I've given the floor over to you because you're so incredible, and that's why I've been saying you have to have your show on this network. You need to come in and help ignite people. You can do this in a way like I've seen no other. Inspire people, especially after that not guilty verdict. So there's so much more we could talk about the trial, but I'd like you to close out on how this can help bring the community together and what your wishes are for that.
Well, the thing that's, I have a passion for patients. I want to be able to have patients understand where it is that they have safety and access to their medicine, and then with that, because of what's going on in Colorado, I see this enormous influx of patients that those of us that are within the realm, we see it because they're coming to us. I'm sure that people outside the realm are also experiencing the same kind of influx of patients from outside of the state. If not, then just understand that this is happening, and our community outside of the cannabis community is not aware at all that we are going to be deluged by thousands of patients. They're already starting to come in. And what's so important to understand is we've got to create they're coming. We're either going to have an infrastructure together to take care of them, or it's going to be a disaster.
It's going to be a Shantyville.
Yeah, and so we can do better than to wait until the crisis happens. And I look back to my own community and see how it came together to fight one of the most horrific things I've ever experienced. And I was in court most of the time. I was evacuated, so I didn't know what was going on where I lived. And I was in court, so I didn't have access to media and television. And after court, I'm still working with lawyers and trying to take care of the basic necessities of life and family and so forth. And so I never really got to see a lot of what's going on. But when I drove back to my house and saw the several different places where the fire almost crossed 24, one of them was an Eagle's Nest dispensary. And this is a beautiful story. We were evacuated a week ago Sunday, all the residents, businesses, and so forth. And Eagle's Nest is a dispensary up on Highway 24, just past Cascade before Green Mountain Falls. And the whole area was evacuated, and the business was there, and the grow was there, and the girls were there. The plants needed water, and nobody could get in to water them because it was an evacuated area. And so the owner had contacted the sheriff to see if there was any way they could just run down and with a hose in a fire zone and water their plants. I mean, the building wasn't on fire. The fire was still on another ridge, but it was an evacuation zone. And, for safety reasons and so forth, that just wasn't something that you can randomly allow people to go in. I understand that, but it's a tragedy because here was a business that was we were threatened with losing one of our supplies of medicine. Without the plants, the business would have gone down. The man who owns the business and his wife would have lost everything. The employees there would have lost their jobs and not had any place else to go, and the patients wouldn't have had medicine. But we couldn't get through. There was a lot of tragedy up there. You do the best that you can. He noticed a bar in Cristola where there were cars and trucks all over where the barricade across 24 was, so he decided to go down there and tell his story and and see if anybody else had any ideas of how to help him save his business. And in telling the story down there, where there were many, many firefighters who had been on their break and were there trying to refresh themselves and regroup and so forth and just get some composure after this horrific thing that we've seen. And Lono was telling his story, and all of a sudden a fireman, and God bless the fireman, he jumps up and he says, "I'll help you." You know, isn't that what firemen do? And so the owner called his grower and said, "I think we've got to wait to the grow." And he said, "I'll be right there." And the fireman and the grower hopped in the fireman's truck and started heading back down. And it was one of those things where, because the fireman's attitude was that he had taken an oath earlier on to protect all life and plants her life, and he and the grower went down and got to a place where they could exit the truck and get up to the dispensary and water the plants. And on Sunday, when the road opened up again and we were able to go back up, we lost a couple. We lost a few clones and 2 or 3 plants that were pretty well along, but the grow was saved, the dispensary is saved, the medicine is saved. And you know, Monday, after the roads were opened again, and I was at least a half a dozen or 10 different dispensaries around, and they were all just hopping. The patients were out, business was good, medicine was being served, questions were being answered. It was beautiful after the tragedy. So we need to do the same thing with the numbers of people that are coming down. I ramble.
Bob, I love your ramblings, and you know what? That just tells the story of the new social consciousness shift that's coming. It's firefighters, it's everybody. They're into that. They're starting to understand it.
You know, the firefighters came into the dispensary to get. They like to get their medicine already pre-rolled. That's the way they'd have it, as they went up to fight those fires, pre-rolled.
Pre-rolled.
I'm serious. I met 4 of them in one dispensary. I was in so much pain. Thank God they let me go to the head of the line because I needed some topical for my back.
Wow.
But yeah, and we found out that's the firemen, the patients that are firemen for their affliction. They like those pre-rolled, and they run right into the fire and take care of protecting our homes, and they're good people.
Folks, this is the social consciousness. This is a change we're seeing. I want to thank you, Bob, for coming on the show tonight. I hope you'll come back here real soon and talk with us.
As soon as Scotty gets that transporter beam worked, I'd rather beam over than have to drive for 60 miles.
we can have you call in.
No, it's all good.
But I want to thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I think we have on the line right now.
I believe it's
Senator Johnson, do we got you on the line here?
Yeah, here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to introduce myself. My name's Josh Stanley here. I'm with American Weed Realm Radio. How are you doing there in Oklahoma?
I'm trying to stay cool.
How hot is it down there?
Thank you for inviting me. You know, we've been in the 90s consistently, and it had some 100s last week, and it's just hot for July, and this was June, and it was hot in May, so we're in the middle of the heat wave just like everybody else, and we've had our fair share of tornadoes and what have you, high winds, so it's just circling the globe, isn't it?
It is, and it's interesting times, I think, for everybody, and for those of you that don't know, me and my brothers, my whole family, we grew up in Oklahoma. I left Oklahoma when I was 18 years old, and we grew up in Shawnee, Oklahoma. So when you're talking 90s and 100s in Oklahoma, you're talking about 80-90% humidity. And with those tornadoes, boy, I tell you what, it's something else.
Yes. Well, I was born in Holdenville.
Holdenville, so you're just
you.
outside
Yeah.
Shawnee. We used to go out to the Holdenville Dam, and that's where you know the funny thing is we go out there and we do the noodling, catching catfish with our hand.
Thing.
Yeah, and now it's a national sport. So now you have noodling on the Animal Planet, and I'm going, that's just something we did because we were bored as kids. That I tell you, Oklahoma's still got still got its own fun things to do, and we've had a heart for Oklahoma. And Senator Johnson, since I found about what you've been doing and working on since 1996, this really just hit me. And for those of you that don't know, what an honor it is to have Senator Johnson on our show here from Oklahoma. She was in the Appropriations Subcommittee on Health and Human Services, Public Safety, Transportation, Veterans and Military Affairs. And she is, if I'm not mistaken, Senator Johnson, correct me if I am, but you are the first to introduce a medical marijuana bill. Is that correct?
I believe so.
I believe that
I believe that would be right, yeah.
in Oklahoma, that's probably one of the most courageous things, courageous acts that I think that you could probably do. And for a minute, if you would, Senator, fill us in just a minute on some of the penalties that people face for just a minute amount of medical marijuana possession.
Yes, on the first offense, of course, it's a misdemeanor, and it has fines, and, folks generally get probation, I believe. But at some point, it escalates to a felony in Oklahoma. And so don't quote me on the specifics of the law, but for me, you say courageous. It really has to do with, this issue having just as much a right to be subject to the legislative process as, say, healthcare or tourism or roads and bridges. For me, it's an issue that has continually evolved a constituency that is wanting a voice in the legislative process. So as a 32-year veteran of that process, it just makes sense to me that if that's what my constituents are asking for, and I know that that's how the process works, that they should be able to do that. So we've introduced that bill, I believe, 3 times now, and each time, like I say, the constituency interest level has grown. And so this time we requested an interim study. We backed it up. There's a sizable enough voice going on right now that we were actually approved for an interim study just this past week. So, again, this is going to start the process for advocates and folks who, especially medicinal marijuana, folks who want to see that dealt with on a policy level to give them access to the legislators.
Oh, Senator Johnson, that just the fact that you've been approved for the interim study is absolutely amazing to us in Colorado. What I want to ask you is, the interim study, when you come in and you go in and you're able to sit and speak in front of senators and congressmen and provide results of this interim study, because I've been down this line. I've done this. I helped to author the first bill here in Colorado, put the first political action committee together to put this as a matter of statute for regulation. What kind of help do you need? Because when you're in Oklahoma, you don't really have a whole lot of statistics that you can back up, or at least a lot of people that would be willing to come forth and say medical marijuana works for me, because at that point in time, I would have think that they'd be facing the potential of walking away in shackles. So we have patients, we have doctors, we've got regulators here, we've got activists such as myself, we've got dispensary owners that are willing to come down and help you in any way that we can. Is that something that would help you?
Oh, tremendously, because basically what I've done is open the door for the advocates to have their voice, and however the advocates want that voice to come across, however they want it organized. The reality is we have to fit within some parameters, because the study was assigned to the Public Safety Committee, I believe. No, it was assigned to the Health Committee, and it's up to that chair whether or not to meet. Interestingly, the senator who chairs it is Senator Brian Crane, and he and I kind of ran head-on into each other earlier in the year over the personhood bill and my amendment that kind of went viral on The Daily Show. So, the chair absolutely has the option of not scheduling an interim study, because that's the power of the chair. But at that point, we make an issue of it in the media, and then we hold our own hearing. But again, it's an opportunity for the advocacy to put the information out there, organized in whatever shape, form, fashion they desire, and to, just to kind of figure out what do we want the message to be and what do we want the outcome to be from this effort.
Precisely. Well put. And we worked on this for years here in Colorado before we got it right. And, we would take senators and we'd take congressmen that we would go in and we would meet with, and they'd say, well, seriously, isn't this is just a joke, isn't it? This is just an excuse for legalization. And then we'd bring them in front of people like Paige Figge, who her 5-year-old daughter gets relief from a non-psychoactive portion of this plant, and 90% of her seizures are gone. And when senators and congressmen see things like this, they say, wait a second, hold on a tick. This isn't just about hippies in your public parks under trees smoking joints. There's something medical to this. When we look at Bob Crouse sitting here next to us in the interview today, who 50% of his leukemia, if not more, is gone, and the only thing he's using is this medical marijuana concentrated cannabis oil, people say, wait a second. When they see that there is a regulation behind this and there is a way to create jobs, to reduce crime, to create taxes and an economic impact study for these states, it's a beneficial, more than a beneficial type of a thing to bring in. And so when do you think this interim study is going to become a reality?
Most of these studies kicking in after September, and they have to be completed by December. So in this interim, before September, is when I'm hoping we can all talk about what we want the study to consist of, how many meetings we think it'll take. So and then schedule a time. I mean, I think we ask for what we want, and kind of challenge the chair to cooperate, because the leadership approved it at a minimum. He can convene, but he might convene one time, and he might want to have say-so over the agenda, but you have to recognize all of the procedural issues that'll come up. But yeah, at any time between September and I would say the middle of November, because I think too we're going to have to definitely document this with a report that spells it out again, because many, not all members belong to that committee, and it's dubious that even the members of that committee will come. But again, it's a legitimized interim study from which we can issue a report that can go to all of them. And now, mind you, there are advocates here in Oklahoma who have been hitting them up 2 and 3 times a week with emails, actually educating them on medical marijuana. And so let me just go this a little further. I think the heading or something was talking about the realms of marijuana. And so we've been talking about the medical realm, and that the many groups like law enforcement against prohibition that are promoting getting rid of the war on drugs because of the criminalization of marijuana and the subsequent overcrowding of prisons with people who basically are nonviolent drug offenders. So that's a realm that's in the possibilities. But politics of the past issues, marijuana. How back in the 30s it was demonized, and how we are where we are today because of those policy decisions. And then there's the potential agricultural economic impacts of marijuana. Oklahoma has a naturally occurring region of marijuana in southeastern Oklahoma. It's probably the number one crop back in the day prior to the policy changes brought on by DuPont and the likes of those folks who were in charge of nylon.
And paper mills,
prior
right.
to their demonization, it was a thriving industry. Oklahoma was the leading producer of rope. So we have that still going on, but right now we spend money to eradicate it.
Yeah.
We're burning up economic potential as a state. So there's so many realms of it. I think the 2 biggest ones are medicinal, and I do think there is a need to look at decriminalizing marijuana. Oklahoma, just like most states, prisons are overcrowded.
I couldn't agree with you more.
$23,000 a year to lock up nonviolent drug offending people.
And not only that, but Oklahoma is one of the many states where we have privatized prisons. And prisons become a commodity, folks. And for those of you that don't know this, it's true. Okay, we're one of the only 5 nations, and the others being third world countries, where we actually privatize our prisons, where we send our prisoners out, nonviolent offenders. into the workforce, where they get paid at best 30 cents as their release stipend, and the prisons bill them out anywhere from $8 to $14 an hour, depending on the region. And that's participating in legalized slavery. That's not a conspiracy theory. This is the business of private prisons. And so we talk about overcrowding. That's certainly, Senator Johnson, that's certainly a concern. The health aspect of things, yeah, it's a little harder to get people to swallow that pill. And then the third that you mentioned, the industrial aspect of it. The DuPont started this reefer madness back in the late 20s and in the 30s because they owned the paper mills, and they knew that they could grow a pine tree that took 9 years to grow 6 inches in diameter, where it took 9 months for the male form of the plant. And we still live under this type of propaganda. It's sad. It's extremely sad. And for you in Oklahoma, Senator Johnson, to stand up for this, me, everybody in the studio, everybody listening is standing up and applauding your courage and your effort in that state. And I'm here to tell you, whatever you need, you get my information from Mike there in Colorado, and let's talk, because even if the senators don't show up for the interim study, we'll show up and we'll get the media there. So you let us know what you need,
and we'll get the opportunity. We'll get our turn to tell the truth.
That's right. And it's the truth, okay? It's not something that we're trying to skew. This is not something that we're trying to get people to see our way. It's the truth. It can bring an incredible economic impact, bring crime down, incredible industrial effect, incredible potentially even biofuels, as well as all of the health benefits. America's waking up, Senator Johnson.
And the possibility of taxing it.
Of course.
Yes. Don't forget that.
No, I'll never forget that. That's part of the economic impact study. Colorado's bringing in $30 million a year from this. Crime has gone down, whether or not you people believe that or not, because we're not treating something that is so mundane as medical marijuana use as a crime, at least not so much anymore. And it's going to happen all over the nation. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so Oklahoma, Senator, is near and dear to our heart. If there's anything that we can do to help, we are here to help. And I want to thank you so much for coming on our show. Will you come on again?
Sure, because I'd love to come on and talk about the interim study we're going to do on private prisons, because you have to go there. And then you have to see how they're driving policymakers through contributions and other ways of influencing the policies. They keep our sentencing laws so skewed as to send people to prison for life for possession of marijuana.
Non-violent offenders, and they're making money on it. This is legalized slavery, and this happens in almost every state in the United States. So
let's agree to talk about that one on a future date. I'd be happy to do it.
Senator Johnson, it's an honor to have you on tonight. I'm sorry I have to say goodbye now. We have to take a break, but I want to thank you so much for your courage. We're here for you, and I'd like to talk to you on a personal level at some point in the next week after the show, because we're here to help you in any way that we can. Thank you so much.
Great. I look forward to it. Thank you, too. And happy 4th to you.
Happy 4th to you, Senator. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to take Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley Brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
The clinic is proud to announce the 3rd annual Clinic Charity Classic Golf Tournament benefiting the Colorado MS Society. The tournament will be held at City Park Golf Course this coming August 11th. There will be some incredible prizes, including an opportunity to win a trip for 2 to Hawaii. The trip includes airfare, 8 days, 7 nights at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua, including 4 rounds of golf and $1,500 spending cash. Thanks to the incredible support of Weed Maps, Heady Glass, Rocky Mountain Hydro, Team Iron Stitch, Dixie Elixir, and MMJPrinting.com, we're able to provide awareness to this incredibly difficult condition that so many Coloradans are suffering from. The event will be covered extensively by our favorite industry media outlets: Culture Magazine, The Hemp Connoisseur, Kush Magazine, and of course the amazing people at iCannabis Radio. Please register at thecliniccolorado.com or at any of our 6 convenient locations throughout the Denver metro area.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On grass. Runongrass.com.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jerri Stephens.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our 2 locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706.
The law offices of Edson Maton and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding. Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Josh, we're back on, buddy. Hello, welcome back. This is Jesse, just stopping in. Welcome back to American Realm Radio. Josh is sitting down soon. I am new here because I just stepped in as I am late, so I don't know where we're at, but I do know that you had a really good conversation with Bob Crouse.
we did have a very good conversation. Thanks for stepping in with me. I had to take a leak. We just had an amazing conversation with Senator Johnson from Oklahoma, Jesse. And as you know, we come from Oklahoma. And as much legislation as we've been able to push through in Colorado, you know as well as I do, Oklahoma would have been last in your mind to ever have somebody even introduce it. And to have somebody with the forethought of Senator Connie Johnson to start introducing these things, I mean, as early as 2006, she's been...
In Oklahoma, too.
In Oklahoma. It takes a lot of courage. But she does it on several fronts, and which I find the same thing that we're talking about. I mean, we have our realm of caring patients on here all the time, every week, to talk about their experience with the oil. And so there's obviously that health benefit. There's obviously the healing aspect of this, whether it's cancer, whether it's MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, arthritis, epilepsy, whatever it is. We have that, again, the tip of the iceberg hasn't come out of the water yet. But she's so right. And most people think, oh, my goodness, they get so angry at the pharmaceutical companies and at the health insurance companies. And people forget that private prisons are a reality, that overcrowding is for a reason, that it's a money maker. And some of these private prisons are actually traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And that is, unfortunately, legalized slavery. And then the other aspect of it, which who knows which is bigger? It's a third, is the industrial aspect. And that is the fact that I can grow on a male plant of cannabis, which, you know what, you can go out into a field and pick all the leaves you want and smoke it all day long, and the most you're going to get is a headache. And you can grow a stalk 4 to 6 inches around in 9 months with bark and everything else is more durable than pine, where pine takes 9 years to grow that long. Plus, the male cannabis or the hemp plant actually regenerates nitrogen to the soil, so it's not something that you have to crop rotate all the time. So it's starting to not become an enigma anymore to the American public as to why this plant is not legalized, is not studied, is not looked to for its health benefits. Now you understand it's the powerful political action committees, special interest groups, and the lobbies that keep this suppressed. We start back in the late 20s and the early 30s, and we start with reefer madness. And what? Come on, folks. The guy smokes a joint, goes to the tool shed, and then gets a garden tool, and then hacks his girlfriend up. And guess what? That had nothing to do with the female portion of the plant. It was the DuPont family that largely funded that because they had the monopoly on the paper mills. 85 years later, we're living under this propaganda while we have our patients like Bob Crouse, like Katie sitting here in our studio today, and we have like precious, wonderful children like little Charlotte, whose 90% of her seizures are down with no psychoactive effect, and on and on and on and on. And it's about time that Americans stand up and say, enough. Enough is enough. And we say it, again, I get upset and I get angry, but we say it through education and we say it through awareness. So I think it's about time for me to take a breath, and I'm glad you stepped in here with your mustache. Yeah. I was a little late getting in. And folks, we're going to step into to the portion of our show that we call Ask Dr. Shack. And for those of you that don't know Dr. Shackelford is not only one of my best buddies, he's also one of my heroes. He's one of the pioneers in medicinal marijuana here in Colorado, a Harvard-educated physician. And as always, every week, we're so honored to have Dr. Shackelford on the show. And I just love to kind of give it over to him. We get hundreds of questions from you folks every week, and we do our best to answer all of these things. So I put some of these questions together tonight for Dr. Shackelford, and we're going to get into answering a few of these questions. Chris, how much time do we got here?
We've got about 30 minutes, 20 minutes.
All right, great. We got 20 minutes. We're going to stretch this out here with
Jerri is on the line as well, I believe.
Okay. And Jerri, on the line, I just enjoy watching this and hold for a little bit. We can't wait to hear your story. So, Dr. Shackelford welcomes.
Hey, thank you, Josh. Hey,
Good to
how's
see you,
everybody?
buddy.
Nice to see you all.
Great to see you. I know, we try to work so closely together with the realm of caring and all these patients, and everything is just so hectic and so busy that even you and I don't get the opportunity to talk to each other as much as we'd like. But email works fine, and it's had to. I want to start, Doc, with a question, a very urgent question. And this question comes from one of our and tonight I'm not going to say her name just because of the situation, but here's her question. She says, I have an urgent question for Dr. Shack. My brother's being diagnosed, it's confirmed, it's AML leukemia. I've been looking into cannabis oil for treatment, but someone said that it could be fatal due to the immunosuppressant properties of CBD or cannabidiol, a compound of the plant. The literature says basically a year to live. I will not accept that my brother may die. Doc, what's your response to this? This is a tough question.
It's a tough question. It's a tough situation. There is an immunomodulating effect of cannabidiol, and probably also with cannabidiol in concert with some of the other 108 or so active compounds that we know are in the cannabis plant natively. Though it's immunomodulating, it isn't necessarily immunosuppressant. The problem...
Explain that.
Oh, okay.
Layman's terms, please, for us.
Right. Good idea. Immunomodulating means it alters immune function. It's not clear, of course, exactly what immunomodulation effects there are from cannabis, and the reason for this is that there's not been a whole lot of research on it. As we have discussed previously, there's an institutional bias against investigating cannabis for potential medical benefit on the part of the National Institute on Drug Abuse. By their actual public statements, they have said that they generally do not fund, and in point of fact, generally really means almost never, fund research that might show medical benefit to marijuana. And the reasons for this are not totally clear, except that the National Institute on Drug Abuse is focused on drug abuse, that is the effects of misuse. And that's understandable. The problem here, of course, is that they fund 85% or so of the world's research into substances like marijuana. There's an assumption that marijuana is dangerous, and none of the research that actually has been conducted in this country or worldwide has substantiated any danger to the use of cannabis, to my knowledge. So there hasn't been a lot of work on the immunomodulating effects of cannabis. What has been done, and is typically been done in specific disease states, either in humans or in animals, has shown that there's the immune modulating effect, meaning it does not turn off the immune system or turn it down so significantly that the immune system is immobilized or paralyzed, but it alters its impact. For example, in autoimmune diseases like inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, some other autoimmune diseases such as scleroderma, rheumatoid arthritis, and similar types of diseases where the immune system is actually ramped up and fails to recognize self versus other. And that's our immune system's role, really, is to recognize things that do not belong in our bodies and get rid of them. So sometimes it goes kind of awry, haywire, and it fails to recognize that it fails to recognize the cells of our own bodies and begins to attack them. In rheumatoid arthritis, some very well done animals and human studies have shown that this immune modulating effect of cannabis, which means it alters its function but doesn't turn it down so far that it no longer is functional, the modulating effect of cannabis has resulted in a decrease in joint destruction in rheumatoid arthritis, for example, and a significant improvement in pain. So it lies somewhere in between no effect on the immune system and a mild effect in changing its impact. How that happens, to my knowledge, isn't totally clear, and I'm certainly interested in hearing from people who may have access to other studies that might shed more light on that. So in the case of AML, I don't think there's any danger that using cannabis would impede or impair the immune system such that it would no longer fight off infection. The disease itself can do that, of course, since the energy is in producing immature and abnormal white blood cells. So the bone marrow is really no longer producing the types of cells that can combat infection, be it viral, bacterial, or foreign body parasite invasion. But here's the other problem. There's not been any research that I know of, clinical research anyway, that says that it's effective in treating any type of leukemia or indeed particular cancers. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence. That means it's observations. People have said, I used this and I got better, or something changed, something improved. Those are important, but they don't constitute a significant, or how shall I say this? They don't constitute a satisfactory level of inquiry and research that would lead a physician to say we should use this to treat this particular cancer. We do need to investigate it. And one of the questions I think you mentioned to me was someone wanted to know about the research from 1975.
Yes, they did. But I want to back up real quick. that question, let's go back. I just want to be clear for this person that she's asking. I hate to say it, but someone said it could be fatal due to the immunosuppressant properties of CBD. So you're saying in that situation, absolutely not.
I would say it would be highly unlikely.
Okay. Now let's move on to that to the other question.
Right, and this because we're in the context of cancer here, I think it's appropriate to address that question. I'm going to read the question because you've given that to me. It says, I've heard you say at one point that medical marijuana was studied back in 1975 and that it was found to have anti-cancer effects. If this is true, why has there been no subsequent follow-up to this form of treatment? Well, first, this was a laboratory study on a rather unusual form of animal cancer, lung cancer, and a particular called Lewis cell lung cancer, and a particular type of lymphoma. This is the Munson, M-U-N-S-O-N study. It was published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute in 1975, and it showed quite conclusively that those particular types of cancers were directly affected by THC and CBD or cannabidiol. The thing that was remarkable about that study is that it was published in a major cancer journal and led to absolutely nothing. And the reason that it led to absolutely nothing, in my opinion, is that the results were so astounding that they were suppressed. It is a researcher in Spain has said that he has been unable to find a paper copy of that particular issue of the Journal of the National Cancer Institute.
Why is that, Doc? I mean, I know sometimes we're uncomfortable talking about some of these things, but in 1975, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we're seeing today, the higher levels of CBD and THC being bred, and from a lot of people saying this is terrible because marijuana is so much stronger nowadays. Why is that? Back in 1975, if they had found an anti-cancer causing effect, okay, I'm not talking about a cure, I'm talking about an anti-cancer causing effect, or something that certainly should pique our interest in the realm of the discovery for the cure. Now that we have even stronger THC and stronger CBD, do you even have do we have an opinion on this? I mean, I know we're treading on thin ice here.
Well, the problem, of course, is that had this research been followed up on at that time, 37 years ago, it might have led, and I don't know this, I've never seen any data, any information from any sources to substantiate the suspicion that it was suppressed. But since marijuana has been vilified since before 1937, but certainly since then, to show that it might have had medical benefit would have essentially pointed to all of the disinformation that was spread about marijuana between 1937 and 1975, let's say. And it would have shown that, in point of fact, that's inaccurate, that it may well have had some medicinal uses. And unfortunately, the DEA's position still is that marijuana has no medical benefit. That 1975 Munson study might have, in fact, in my mind, actually does demonstrate that is not the case. And I think that a lot of the research that's been done since, and I'm not really talking about cancer at this point because there has not been a lot of clinical study done on it in cancer, but the other research has shown that cannabis has significant medical benefit. I think in 1975, it would have led to a significant change in the regulatory environment around marijuana, and that probably was intolerable and could not even have been entertained as an idea.
You mean to, the likes of Gerald Ford or Richard Nixon, or whatever the case may be. We can ponder that forever, but the fact that we wonder whether that study was suppressed, I don't really wonder about that. When you have such a profound discovery on a natural compound like this, that's something that I would think that people would run for the cure or wear a pink ribbon for, to be sure. And now, given 37 years later, I'm scratching my head because you're a medical doctor, and you have to follow very, very strict protocol. What we call observational research studies are certainly, to the viewers, a difference between a double-blind placebo study, which is what the FDA or the AMA requires, and then an observational research study, which are the studies that we conducted for thousands of years to see if a plant or a medicine worked on somebody. That's largely what we've relied on. And so let's talk about, since this study from 1975 on, in a sense, we're too scared to go figure out why, in some cases, this works so well for some people, because we can't dig that deep.
Well, one of the problems is who pays for it. These types of research projects are very expensive. And there is increasing evidence that double-blinded placebo-controlled trials, though important, are not necessarily the best way to study the effects of something as complex as cannabis, for example, because it's hard to isolate the variables. And that's the point of double-blinded placebo-controlled trials. You isolate your variables. What are the things that you are trying to test? It works very, very well with single compound type studies, but cannabis is not a single compound.
No, sir.
And so these 108 different isolated or individual compounds work in a way that has not yet been figured out, work together to produce the observable effects that we see with cannabis. And those are many. In a sense, the Western medicine is a reductionist approach. We try to find the whatever the active compound is, isolate it, synthesize it, and sell it. Now, that's worked extraordinarily well in many ways, and yet it does not allow for easy study of complex systems like the cannabinoid system and the systems of the substances found in cannabis, which interact in not necessarily easily predictable ways, but certainly in safe ways to reduce pain, to reduce nausea, to decrease, because inflammation. These are highly anti-inflammatory compounds, according to some extraordinarily good research. And most research has looked at mostly THC and CBD. There hasn't been a lot of study. Well, first, it's important to state there hasn't been a lot of study on cannabis to begin with.
Sure.
In general, there are maybe 25,000 studies. And let's put that in context. If you go to, and I've mentioned this before, a website, wonderful website run by FDA and the National Institute of Health and Institutes of Health, called clinicaltrials.gov. And you'll see the total number of clinical trials underway worldwide. You can search this particular database. There are about 106,000 clinical trials currently underway around the world in 170 some odd countries. If you simply search marijuana and United States, you'll see about 250 studies. If you just look at United States, there are about 54,000 trials. So we have 250 clinical trials on marijuana underway in the United States out of 54,000 or so. So we're not looking at it. And one reason we're not looking at it is the institutional bias expressed by the National Institute on Drug Abuse's spokeswoman, Shirley Simpson, in January of 2010 in the New York Times article. And that's evidenced by the worldwide numbers of studies on clinical trials on cannabis at 350 or so.
And just because, dig a little deeper, just because NIDA says no, because this is a federally banned substance that no one has OD'd or died from in 10,000 years, what's driving that? What do we think is driving that? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. I mean, this is Ask Dr. Shack Hour, so if you don't feel comfortable answering that question, I think that's what angst a lot of our viewers.
Well, one of the things, of course, is who finances research. The
research or results?
Well, who finances the studies? Now I see it and I was a research fellow at Harvard Medical School, so I've kind of been down this road. Research is funded by basically two sources: private industry and public funds. Now, the National Institutes of Health are tasked with studying things that need to be studied. In particular, where there's not a direct financial or potential financial advantage to be gained by doing a study. Private industry typically will fund those sorts of studies. The problem, of course, with cannabis is that you can't patent it. It's a plant. You can patent a process of extraction or something of that nature, but you can't actually patent the substance because it's naturally derived. So there's not a way of making tremendous amounts of money or recouping the significant investment that would be required to come up with a particular treatment derived from cannabis. Now, so in places where private money is not available, and there is a pressing need to understand these things, NIH should jump in. That hasn't happened, and I'm not sure why. It may well be that in the federal system of financing research, substances like marijuana, which are Schedule 1, have to be financed, and this may be the way it works, I'm not certain of this, have to be financed through NIDA, through the National Institute on Drug Abuse, because these are considered substances with a very high abuse potential. It's not hard. It could well be that that the pharmaceutical companies have a vested interest in seeing cannabis not be studied.
If I were given a grant and said, okay, Josh, you have 2 years to study this particular chemical compound or this group of compounds, whatever it is. Let's say it's a natural occurring plant, coffee plant, who cares what it is, and I get 2 years to study that, and they say I'm going to give you $5 million. But if you finish that study early and this plant proves to be beneficial and you have all of your research done, then we're going to cut that grant in half, and you're not going to be able to you'll be able to keep half the money. That's kind of what we see in what's funded as far as research. So when we talk private or public, the public domain, whether it's traded on Wall Street and whether it's an insider into a new drug that the FDA is going to approve, or whether it's something that is privately funded, or something that we're talking about here that I would prefer to speak of in the dietary supplement realm or the nutritional supplement realm, like medical marijuana, because it's a natural occurring plant, I find it atrocious that more study hasn't been done on something that has proven to be so effective outside of a single compound.
Well, I would agree with that assessment that it's atrocious. But the question really, I guess, is why? What mechanisms are in place? What regulatory restrictions are in place to make it difficult? And what actually happens in the case of cannabis or any of those Schedule 1 drugs or substances is that it requires the approval of not only the DEA but also the FDA and the National Institute on Drug Abuse to do clinical trials. Now, the stated position of NIDA is that they generally do not fund studies that might show medical benefit to marijuana. By extension, it goes to those other substances. It's a question of study design. So if I designed a study that was intended, and this is the problem with this kind of research, this is biased, it is not objective, research is supposed to be objective, but I can design a study to show that chewing on a pencil can be deleterious to your health and potentially get that funded. So the question is is in the phrase that might show benefit. And so the focus of NIDA is to show detriment, not benefit. And so, we're in a position here where nobody's stepping up to the plate to study cannabis probably because it's difficult to make money on it.
Well, okay, and and unfortunately, we have to cut the Ask Dr. Shack. Now,
but I do have one quick question. Just
you're going to have to hustle, Jesse, because we got to go.
My question is real quick: is of these Schedule 1 drugs, you say cannabis has had 250 clinical trials. About how many about the other ones? cocaine, heroin, some of these other ones. How many tests have been done on those of the 54,000?
Yeah, I know.
That's a good question. I have not studied it.
I mean, I would love to know if a listener out there could look that up and send it to us, because if 250 have been done on cannabis, there's other Schedule 1 drugs, and I guarantee you there's been more.
That is true. And psilocybin, for example, has been studied at Johns Hopkins, and apparently the researchers at Johns Hopkins have had a much easier time studying psilocybin than researchers have had studying marijuana.
Well, of
and
course,
that's not
because
clear.
they got to see Jesus. I mean, I think Jesse's on psilocybin right now.
If you're seeing Jesus, we need to have a talk, and I know a good shrink.
Yeah, pass that mushroom cap over, right?
All right.
So, you know what, guys, that's what the realm of caring is seeking to do. We don't make claims here in the realm of caring. We don't know. We simply don't know. What we're here to do in the realm of caring with Dr. Shackelford's help is to provide a better quality of life, to get this oil to these individuals with these debilitating conditions. These are the questions that we want to answer, that we want to know. We have so many more questions that have been asked to Dr. Shack tonight. And, you know, I said at the beginning of the 2 hours, we had a 2-hour show tonight because we just can't seem to get through all this information. I have 100 more questions that have been sent to ask Dr. Shackelford. So unfortunately, it's going to have to wait, and next week we have a pre-recording because I'm actually on vacation, because my wife just can't stand not to see me. I can't understand how anybody would want to see me every day, but apparently she does. So Dr. Shackelford, yeah. Dr. Shackelford, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Will you stay on with us for our last caller here?
Of course.
Folks, we have a special guest here from Oklahoma. And we have about 8 minutes left, and we're gonna have to cut loose. But Jerri Stephens has a very important story to tell, and I'd like to have her tell it. And Doc, Jess, you guys feel free to chime in on this anytime. Jerri, we got you.
Hi.
Hey, how are you, Jerri?
Good. How are you guys?
Good evening.
Good, doing all right.
Doing great. You got Dr. Shackelford, and you got Josh and Jesse here. We have about 8 minutes left, maybe a little less than that. So I want to hear. We want to hear the story. You told me you had something really important to share. I read a little bit about it, and I'd like to turn the floor over to you.
Okay. We're going to talk about Patricia SpottedCrow, and she's up for her release within just a few weeks. Governor Fallon's going to sign off, and I'll be taking Patricia home to her children. So after 24 months inside of Taft Correction Center, we've rallied up, and we've sent emails to the representatives, because she was kind of left hanging after her parole hearing because of her lawyer got in trouble himself. So after about 30 days, Mike and Jeff and I rallied up, and people from around the cannabis community all sent emails and flooded the state house, to where the governor faxed her parole release papers to the warden, and she was called into the office and was told, I don't know who's paying these people, but you got a very strong support out there in the outside, and you should be going home really soon, within like 2 or 3 weeks. So we're looking at that. And
Jerri, that's wonderful. That's wonderful news. Is this just another story of people activating to their elected representatives and exercising your voice and understanding that these folks work for you, not the other way around?
Yes. We all pulled together, and I sent a letter on the personal side, since I've advocated for the family for all this time, from the time she was put in to the system.
And tell us, Jerri, give us some background on this, on what she was brought in for.
Okay. Well, she was turned in by a meth user for 3 grams of weed. By the time they got her they came in and they raided her home. They found nothing on her, but by the time they got her in jail, the informant came back, and Patricia wasn't even there. So the transaction happened with her mother, and it was a dime sack.
And then they arrested Patricia, took her mother in also, and then they spent 3 weeks inside the county jail, and they dug through her, her personal belongings, found one seed, one stem, and her first offense, she got 12 years.
Wow.
And she went to court thinking it was just, she took a blind plea, and she went to court thinking she would just get community service or jail time in the county. Well, she got sent straight to BSC for 12 years. And we rallied up, and Jeff started a petition he's out of California, and we all got together, and there was 40,000 plus signatures that was presented to her lawyer, which was working pro bono, and it was reduced to 8 years. Well, when the pro hearing came up in March of this year, I took her mother to the hearing, and she testified on behalf of Patricia, and the parole board was mandatory, release Patricia. Well, days went by, months went by, and I called her mother, and I was like, what's the standing on this? She said, no one's telling Patricia anything. Well, I looked it up, and her lawyer was facing charges of bribing a police officer to pay off a judge to keep one of his law firm people their driver's license after a DUI. So he was placed on probation for 2 years with a $500 fine.
Excuse me, this is Dr. Shackelford. Now, why was she using cannabis medically?
No,
okay.
Recreational.
Okay.
But she was caught with a seed and stem?
Yeah. Well,
yes, one seed, one stem. And they gave her another additional 2 years for that.
And how many children does she have?
She has 4. She has 3 young babies, 2, 4, and 6. And then she's got an older son, 12.
And what day is she walking out?
She should be walking out within, I would say, I'm going to give it less than 30 days.
30 days. 30 days, it takes
what I
long.
spoke to her on the 13th, the warden told her that it would, the papers were going to be signed by the governor, and that was on the 23rd, the governor signed those papers, so we're just waiting for any day for it to go through the process, and which would be on a Tuesday or a Thursday, and then she would sign them, make that call to her mother. I go get her mother and take her to task to pick up Patricia, to take Patricia home to her children.
Jerri, that's amazing, and I want to thank you for your story. It just tells you, folks, it tells you what's happening with social consciousness out there. It's telling you how absurd that we can be sometimes. It tells us that things are changing. As Bob said, the times they are changing. And Jerri, I want to thank you for calling in. I'm sorry we have to cut it loose tonight. Next up, we have Sex Pot Radio. I hope you'll tune in for that. Next week, we have a pre-recorded show. We're going to play the very first show of American Weed Realm Radio because, like I said, apparently my wife would like to see a little more of me, and I'm going to take a little vacation with her. And then we're going to be right back on July 17th with Dr. Shackelford and Jesse, and hopefully he's shaved his mustache by then. So, you know what, guys? And then I want to give a shout-out. I got to say this. I've been in New Orleans for the last weekend with a great buddy of mine, the guitarist for the Seven Walkers, a band that my great friend Bill Kreutzmann, the drummer for the Grateful Dead, put together. And I want to give a shout-out. Papa Molly was feeling a little bit ill, and one of the greatest guitarist legends in New Orleans. And I want to give a shout-out to you. I hope you feel better, brother. It was great to see you, great to hang out with you this weekend. Folks, tune in next week for American Weed Realm Radio. Good night.
Good night.
California's Attorney General has determined that the Repeal Cannabis Prohibition Act will save hundreds of millions of dollars from our overburdened justice system while creating hundreds of millions in new tax revenues from new sustainable jobs and industries that are friendly to our environment. But we can't do it without your help. We are seeking your donations to get on the ballot. Please go to repealcannabisprohibition.org to learn more about how you can help. It's time to end the war on cannabis and hemp in California. It's time to end the madness. Paid for by Sensible Californians Incorporated.
Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Rick Cusick from High Times Magazine, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio.
The clinic is proud to announce the 3rd annual Clinic Charity Classic Golf Tournament benefiting the Colorado MS Society. The tournament will be held at City Park Golf Course this coming August 11th. There will be some incredible prizes, including an opportunity to win a trip for 2 to Hawaii. The trip includes airfare, 8 days, 7 nights at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua, including 4 rounds of golf and $1,500 spending cash. Thanks to the incredible support of Weed Maps, Hetty Glass, Rocky Mountain Hydro, T. Meyer & Stitch, Dixie Elixir, and MMJprinting.com, we're able to provide awareness to this incredibly difficult condition that so many Coloradans are suffering from. The event will be covered extensively by our favorite industry media outlets: Culture Magazine, The Hemp Connoisseur, Kush Magazine, and of course the amazing people at iCannabis Radio. Please register at thecliniccolorado.com or at any of our 6 convenient locations throughout the Denver metro area.